29% of primary school children think that cheese comes from plants. Perhaps more worrying is that of a group of 16 to 24-year-olds who profess to know about food, nearly a third of them didn't know that eggs came from hens. So as a nation, we're on average about 6 generations removed from the land. So you would have to go back about 100 years to find a member of your family who worked on a farm or was a farmer. Does that matter? We've forgotten to value the food that we eat. In fact, I don't think that probably any one of you in the room here thought about where your food came from for any of your last 3 meals. Probably no further than coming from the supermarket. So my name is Piggot and I am a farmer. I love farming. Our family's been farming here for about 600 years. And I want to tell you why I believe that you should all be a farmer for a day. Because I think that actually by understanding more of where your food comes from, you can make choices that can really positively impact the planet. So I want to start with a little story. After leaving school, I went off to university, and then I went and worked in the city for a while, and I was surrounded by friends and colleagues who weren't farmers. And it became really apparent to me that these people didn't value their food. They were disconnected in such a way that actually the farmer wasn't even really a part of their thoughts. But moreover, what they did think about a farmer was that him or her pillaged the land. They didn't care for the land that they looked after, for the environment, the hedgerows, the birds. And to me that really hurt, because I knew that as a farmer's son and as a farmer myself, that actually farmers were doing a massive amount to try and help the environment. So I thought, well, what can I do to make a difference? Like many of you have said today. So in 2006 I founded a National Farm Open Day, and since that day we have farms up and down the country will open up on the first Sunday in June. And this year we had more people than Glastonbury came to Farm Sunday. In fact, since we opened we've had about 1.5 million people have come to farms to find out where the food comes from, to find out what I do as a farmer. We've had Open Farm Sunday open up in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, and now in Kenya, because people are realising it's so important to reconnect people like you with where your food comes from. And more recently, we've embarked on an exciting project to build a farm on our school, so that we can encourage young people to make the connection with the food that they cook with how that grows on the farm. So what can you do? What can you do to change the way that you eat your food, the choices that you make, what you consume? How can you make a difference? So I want for you to think more about where your food comes from when you're sat there in the supermarket or walking in the supermarket aisle, or when you're at home. But why is it important? We've heard many talks today about the pressures on the planet. But when we think about sustainability and how we change that, no one mentions food. You talk about carbon emissions, you talk about polluting the oceans and the rivers, we talk about deforestation, but no one makes the link back to food and to ourselves. And we can make a difference, because by eating more healthily ourselves, we can also help the health of the planet. And we know what pressure is. We know that by the time you're my age, there'll be another 2.6 billion people on the planet. That's a really big number. So, 2.6 billion. Well, that's the equivalent of another 8 United States of America. It's an enormous weight on the planet, and for me as a farmer, it's to think that we've got to produce that much more food. So, by 2050, we will need to produce more food than we have in the past 500 years put together. But it's not just an issue about supply. It's also one of distribution. So at the moment there are 7 billion people on the planet, and every night 1 billion will go to bed malnourished, and another 1 billion will go to bed obese. So there's so much we can do about education. But we've touched on it already, about the amount of food that we waste. So I, as a farmer, I'm very proud about what I produce. And if you come to my farm, I'll show you. But the fact that in the UK, we throw away half of the food that sits in our supermarkets or in our homes. In the world, we throw away half of all the food that is grown on the planet. And as a farmer, whether it's me or my farming friends in Australia, South America, or Africa, that's hard. If you're working really hard to produce food to feed the world, and that population is bunging half of it in the bin and not valuing it, that puts extra pressure on the planet. And you don't understand seasonality. In fact, the majority of people that I speak to, I ask them when harvest is. When will I harvest my wheat? They don't even know because we've become so disconnected. And this puts additional pressure on the land. In fact, the food that we waste, if it were a country, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases after America and China. So why be a farmer for a day? Why will that make a difference? Well, through Open Farm Sunday and through the farm school, we know that showing people firsthand what I do as a farmer and what all other farmers around the world do, if you understand it a bit more, perhaps you'll take a little bit more care about the food that you eat. And this is a problem. The media will have you believe that every farmer is 70 going on 90, academically challenged, technologically defunct. And that actually for you isn't a great message. Do you really put trust in a nation that you think isn't in touch with the cutting edge of science? Do you think that those people are really in tune with the pressures that are on the planet? This is really damaging for you and for I, because you need to have faith in what we do as farmers. You have to have faith that we will do the very best for you and for the planet. And you need to see farmers as a part of the solution and not the problem. So, what are we doing? Well, we're making big changes. Agriculture is technologically advanced, in fact more advanced than most industries in the developed world and the developing world. We're using precision technology on our farm. Most of our tractors are driven by satellite. We can alter the way that they perform in the field remotely and checked over from another country. The technology has been adopted at yesterday's Grand Prix, not the other way around. It is cutting edge. Every square metre of my farm is monitored so that that plant will get the exact amount of food that it needs. No more, no less, the exact amount. And here we are making a massive difference. We're reducing the amount of nitrogen fertiliser we're using. We're making sure that we only apply plant protection when we need it. And yet as a human race, we carry on eating to excess. We can't look after our own health, and we criticise those that are making a difference. But what else are we doing? Well, we're also, if you were to come to my farm, I would show you that actually farming isn't just about producing food. It's about understanding the habitats that I work in that surround us every day. Those 500,000 miles of hedgerows that beautifully line the avenues and corridors and fields of the United Kingdom. The fact that I have 72 species of bird on my farm. The fact that if I don't look after the birds and the habitats for the wildlife, then my farm will not flourish. We're not ripping out hedgerows and destructing the soil, because that is our lifeblood. And we have a saying amongst farmers, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, that we have a duty. And that one duty, and my father said this to me, he said, you have one duty. When you take this farm on from me, that you hand it on to the next generation in a better condition than you received it. That's because we're trying to make the world a more sustainable place, and we are making a massive difference. And it's time for your generation, because as I said to you at the beginning, we're 6 generations removed from the land. The UK is more developed than any nation in the world in that respect. And so people look to us to see what will happen next in their country. And so it's people like you who can make a difference, that actually, by understanding the seasons, so when you go to the supermarket, you choose to buy fruits in season in the UK and not always buying from overseas, which is putting extra bearing and resources on water and transport. So you understand that actually which products are good to support and which aren't. Because we've got to stop throwing away food. We've got to start understanding that farmers are a part of the solution and not the problem. So I encourage you to be a farmer for a day, and you will be able to make a difference. Thank you.